When we look at someone who's a true master at what they do, a brilliant scientist, a legendary artist, an iconic entrepreneur, their skill, it almost looks like magic, right? We see it as some kind of innate genius, like they were just born with it. But what if that's just the end of the story? What if we're missing the most important part? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. The hidden path that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary genius.
I mean, think about Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. We all know it. We see that mysterious smile, the flawless composition, the work of a total genius. But what we don't see are the years and years he spent sketching muscles and bones, studying how light and shadow work, and filling up notebook after notebook with technical drawings. The masterpiece is really just the tip of the iceberg. The real work, it's all hidden right below the surface.
So, here's the big question. Are these masters just a different breed, or did they actually follow a path? Well, the truth is, there is a process that got them there. And in this explainer, we're going to break that exact process down. This timeless path to mastery. We'll start with the first steps of apprenticeship, go through mentorship, and all the way to true creative intuition. And the best part, it's a path that anyone, and I mean anyone, including you, can follow.
Okay, so the journey always begins right here, in what's called the apprenticeship phase. This is that foundational period of just deep learning and observation. A lot of the time, it's quiet, pretty thankless work, where you're basically a sponge, absorbing everything you can, usually without any pats on the back or recognition.
This is such a great way to think about it. Imagine a giant, towering tree. Nobody ever walks by and says, "Wow, look at the amazing roots on that thing." You can't even see them. But we all know, without that deep, invisible network, that tree would never grow tall, and it certainly wouldn't survive a storm. Your apprenticeship? That's you building your root system.
Let's take a guy like Benjamin Franklin. Long before he was, shaping a nation, he was just a young guy trying to teach himself how to write better. What he did was he'd take articles from a newspaper, rewrite them completely from memory, and then compare his version to the original, fixing every single little flaw. He was building his foundation, word by word, when absolutely no one was watching.
But just absorbing knowledge isn't going to cut it. The next absolute critical phase is putting all that knowledge into practice. See, mastery is forged in action, not just in theory. It's that huge leap from knowing what to do to actually being able to do it.
You've probably heard of the 10,000-hour rule, right? Now, whether that exact number is perfect can be debated, but the principle behind it is rock solid. It stands for a massive amount of focused, intentional practice, pushing yourself just a little bit past your comfort zone day in and day out.
It really is just like learning to ride a bike, seriously. Nobody ever learned how by reading a book about it. You have to get on, you have to feel that wobble, you're probably going to fall a couple of times, and you just let your body figure it out through trial and error. That hands-on experience is completely non-negotiable.
Or look at Michael Faraday, one of the greatest scientists in history. He didn't start out at some fancy university. He was an apprentice in a bookbinding shop. But he didn't just bind the books, he read them. And then he started running his own little experiments in the back room, turning the ideas he read about on the page into real-world action. So we've covered those first two huge steps. Now you can kind of see the whole roadmap we're following here. After you build that foundation and practice like crazy, you've got to learn to navigate the world of people, find your own voice, and then ultimately reach that incredible state of intuitive flow. Having a mentor is like a cheat code. It's an incredible accelerator. They've already been down the path, and they can save you years of making painful mistakes. They basically hand you the rule book. But here's the thing. Real mastery demands that, eventually, you start writing your own rules.
Mozart is the classic example here. His father, Leopold, was a fantastic teacher who gave him this world-class musical education. But for years, Mozart composed in the style that was popular at the time. His truly mind-blowing revolutionary music, that only came out after he broke away from his dad's influence to forge his own completely unique path.
But here's something we can't forget. Technical skill exists in a social world. And this brings us to a super important point. Mastery is not a solo mission. You could be the most talented person on the planet, but if you can't work with other people, get your ideas heard, or handle social dynamics, your talent is just going to hit a ceiling.
Think about it like this. Being the best chess player in the world is one thing. But being the best chess player who can also read their opponent's mind, build alliances within the chess community, and handle pressure with grace? Now that is a true master whose influence goes way beyond the 64 squares.
Even Charles Darwin wasn't necessarily the single most brilliant biologist of his time. But what he had was incredible patience, humility, and this amazing skill for writing to and learning from hundreds of other naturalists all over the world. It allowed him to connect the dots in a way nobody else could. His social skill actually magnified his scientific skill.
All right, now this is where things get really, really exciting. After all that learning, all that practicing, and all that collaborating, you finally get to a point where you know the rules so well that you can start to creatively break them. This is the moment where real innovation is born. I absolutely love this jazz analogy. A musician spends years just grinding, mastering scales, chords, music theory, all the rigid stuff. But that deep, deep knowledge is precisely what gives them the freedom to improvise, to create something totally new and beautiful right there on the spot. Real freedom comes from discipline.
People think of Edison and the light bulb and imagine this single eureka moment. But the reality? It was over 1,000 failed experiments. Every single failure taught him something. His breakthrough wasn't luck. It was his deep knowledge combined with relentless creative experimentation.
And here we are, the summit of the mountain. This is that point where your thousands of hours of practice get so deeply wired into you that your skill becomes second nature. You stop thinking about the steps. You start instinctively feeling the right move. You hit that state of flow.
Think about when you first learned to drive a car. Remember how overwhelming it was? You're juggling the steering wheel, the pedals, the mirrors. It felt impossible. But now, if you've been driving for years, you can have a conversation, listen to music, navigate traffic, and you do it all almost without thinking. That's your intuition in action.
So when you step back and look at all of these masters, Franklin, Faraday, Mozart, Edison, you see this exact same process play out. Every one of them learned deeply, practiced relentlessly, got help from others, and then pushed the boundaries to create something brand new. They all walked the path.
So look, if there's just one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. Stop thinking of mastery as some magical gift that only a few people get. See it for what it really is, a process. Yeah, it's a difficult, time-consuming process, but it's also a deeply human and ultimately an achievable one.
So next time you're feeling frustrated or you feel like you're just not there yet, I want you to remember this. Every single person you look up to was a beginner once. They were in their own apprenticeship phase, putting in the hours, feeling totally invisible. The struggle you're feeling today, that is the soil where your future mastery is growing.
If you want to uncover more of these timeless blueprints for growth and achieving your goals, make sure you subscribe to UNLT. We love breaking down the processes that anyone can follow to get where they want to go. Thanks so much for joining me.